In the cold region in the north, 3 men dressed in black robes prepare themselves to go beyond the wall. They are members of the Night's Watch who are tasked to keep wildlings and other dangers away from the wall. There have been reports of wildling ambush and attacks on other men of the Watch. They cautiously approach a small clearing, careful not to alert the wildlings, where dismembered body parts litter the ground. There's an elaborate circular formation that appears to signify something. The man panics and immediately rides his horse to quickly escape. He tells his companions what he saw. The commanding officer just brushed it off, saying that the wildlings are savages who often do such things to each other. He mocks his 2 companions who wanted to turn back, saying that they have finished their mission. Furthermore, if they run away, they will be marked as deserters and will be beheaded instantly. They go back to the place where the first ranger saw the bodies, but when they get there, it is all just snow. Just then, a man pale as a ghost creeps up to the high-ranking officer and immediately kills him. The girl, who was once dead, now stood with glowing blue eyes. It kills the second man and leaves the third alone. In the meantime, in Winterfell, where Lord Ned Stark reigns over as the Warden of the North, he watches over his son Bran Stark's skill with archery. Jon Snow, the bastard son of Ned, and the eldest, Robb Stark, guides his aim. Rickon Stark stands watch. The boys practice for war while the 2 other girls, Arya and Sansa Stark, are practicing embroidery skills. Arya doesn't seem to be too happy about it and joins the boys' archery. She hits the center of the target and takes a little bow. A man then interrupts them and reports that the deserter in the Night's Watch has been found. He orders his men and Bran Stark to get ready. The man keeps repeating that he saw White Walkers. When faced with the Lord of the North, he apologizes, but he insists that he saw White Walkers. After hearing his explanation, Ned Stark decapitates him. On their way home, they see a dead deer and go on to investigate. They discover a dead dire wolf with 6 cubs with it. They adopt it and gift it to the 6 children of Ned. At the same time, in the royal capital of Westeros in King's Landing, Hand of the King Jon Arryn dies. The kingdom mourns for his death. Queen Cersei Lannister watches over his funeral when his brother, Jaime Lannister, comes and tells her to stop worrying too much. She says that unlike him, she worries if Jon had told anyone before he died. Whatever this secret may be, they sure want to hide it forever. Back at Winterfell, everyone prepares to get the place ready. They get news that the king will arrive in a few days' time. Soon enough, the king, along with hundreds of his men, arrives. Bran is the first one to see this atop a tower, but he gets scolded by his mother to never climb the tower. Everyone form a formation to formally welcome the king. Everyone bows to the one king of the 7 kingdoms, King Robert Baratheon. He immediately marches towards Ned and tells him he got fat. Ned gestures toward King Robert's own body, but King Robert just laughs it off and the 2 hug each other. Turns out, they are old friends. Once the 2 buddies are alone, Robert tells him his intent, to invite him to come to King's Landing and become the new hand of the king. Ned tries to decline, but Robert insists that he is the only person he can trust, more than anybody. Meanwhile, far away from Westeros across the narrow sea, Princess Daenerys Targaryen looks across the window, seemingly lost in thought. Her brother Viserys Targaryen calls out to her. They were the former royalty in Westeros until Robert Baratheon and his allies usurped the throne. Now hiding in the free city of Pentos, they try to live a new life. Viserys is slowly gathering new allies to claim the throne back. He asks his sister to prepare herself as they will be meeting new guests who could potentially be new allies for them. The barbaric Dothraki tribe, who are known for their prowess in battle. Viserys wants to offer his sister to their leader in exchange for an army to reclaim the throne in Westeros. The Dothraki leader, Khal Drogo, and his riders came to meet Daenerys. He is a stunning man who has long braids, signifying that he has never been defeated in battle. He takes one look at Daenerys from top to bottom and leaves without saying anything. Daenerys tries to object to the wedding, but Viserys is desperate and tells her that if the whole tribe wants a piece of her, he would allow it if that's what it takes to get their kingdom back. Back at Winterfell, Sansa is enamored with Prince Joffrey and wants to quickly be wed to him. She begs her mother to convince her father to agree to be the hand of the king. That way, she could also stay at the royal capital. A party commences that night and everyone is having a good time. Except for Jon Snow, who is alone with a training dummy. Seems Catelyn Stark forbade him from joining the feast. He meets with Tyrion Lannister, the dwarf brother of the queen. He advises Jon to never be ashamed of being a bastard and to wear it like armor, and it can never be used against himself. Meanwhile, in the free city of Pentos, Daenerys and Khal Drogo's wedding ceremony proceeded. They receive unique gifts from everybody and from a Westerosi knight named Jorah Mormont. He served the previous king and says he remains loyal to the Targaryens. Daenerys also receives 3 dragon eggs. Finally, a great white horse from Khal Drogo. The following morning, at Winterfell, Bran is just casually climbing the top of the castle when he witnesses something that he shouldn't have. He gets shoved down by Jaime Lannister. After procuring a wife for the fearsome Khal Drogo, the Dothraki tribe is once again on the move. Daenerys still could not fathom how she was in this situation, being traded to be a bride at such a young age. She sulks after feeding on dried horse meat. Nevertheless, Jorah ushers her to move on and be used to the life she will have with the Dothrakis. In Winterfell, Tyrion Lannister wakes up in a barn, feeling extremely hungover and finding himself cuddling a dog. Joffrey, his nephew, and his bodyguard Sandor Clegane are present. Tyrion tells Joffrey that he intends to offer his condolences to the Starks before they depart. When Joffrey complains about the sorrowful sounds of women, Tyrion takes action by slapping him 3 times. Despite Joffrey's tears and attempts to argue, Tyrion insists that he must go to the Starks and show them the proper respect. The Hound warns him that Joffrey will remember his slaps. During breakfast, Tyrion sits down with his siblings Cersei, Jaime, and their children, Myrcella and Tommen. Myrcella inquires about Bran's fate, to which Tyrion responds that apparently Bran will survive. Cersei and Jaime look at each other looking very worried. Tyrion then declares his intention to journey north to visit the Wall before returning home. Jaime expresses his preference for a clean death over living as a cripple or disfigured, but Tyrion disagrees, stating he would be curious to hear what Bran has to say. Jaime makes a sarcastic remark to Jon Snow in Winterfell's armory, thanking him for becoming a man of the Night Watch that guards them against threats beyond the Wall. After the sword is forged, Jon visits Arya before he leaves. He presents her with a sword crafted by the smith, emphasizing the importance of using its point. Arya names the sword Needle, and they share a heartfelt goodbye, embracing tightly. Jon then goes to see Bran, despite Catelyn's disapproval, and tells the comatose Bran to visit him at the Wall when he recovers. Catelyn eventually forces Jon to leave. She chastises Ned that when he left before, he came back with another woman's son, and even with their son lying on the bed, he is yet again leaving. Outside, Jon bids farewell to Robb with a hug. After saying their goodbyes, Ned departs for King's Landing while Jon, accompanied by his uncle Benjen Stark, departs for the Night's Watch. Ned says to Jon as they say their goodbyes, "You are a Stark. Although you don't have my name, you have my blood." Ned tells Jon that they will discuss Jon's mother the next time they see each other. During lunch, the subject is revisited as Ned and King Robert talk about the good old days while sitting by the roadside. Robert says that Ned Stark has only ever forgotten his honor because of one woman. Between bringing up names of women he had been with, Robert finally gets to work after receiving a message informing him of Daenerys Targaryen's marriage. Despite Ned's reminder that there is an ocean separating Westeros and that the Dothraki have no fleet, he still gets mad and wants to dispose of her and her unborn kid. Over the howls of wolves, Maester Luwin visits Catelyn as she continues to keep watch over a sleeping Bran. He expresses his concern about her neglecting her duties as the Lady of Winterfell. Robb then enters and says he will be taking care of those responsibilities in her stead. Just then, a fire broke out in one of the houses, so he bolts outside. When he's gone, a sinister-looking man with a wickedly curved sword enters the room. He is an assassin sent after Bran's life. She bravely defends her son and even injures herself in the process. Luckily, the dire wolf saves the day and protects them. Catelyn investigates where Bran fell on her own. One blonde hair is all that she discovers. She then summons a meeting of herself, Ser Roderick Castle, Maester Luwin, Robb, and Theon to the Godswood at Winterfell, where she presents her theory. Bran witnessed something he was not supposed to see, hence the attempt at his life. Additionally, Ser Roderick notes that the dagger is too sophisticated a weapon for a simple petty criminal. The blade is Valyrian steel, the hilt dragonbone, with Robb taking care of Winterfell and the gods handling Bran's life. Catelyn makes the decision to ride for King's Landing with Roderick Castle. We make a brief return to the Dothraki Sea, where Daenerys musters the courage to oppose Khal Drogo and win him over. The pair has a night of genuine, passionate lovemaking together after she gets in control. At the inn at the crossroads, where the king's procession has stopped for the night, Sansa seizes the chance to explore with her direwolf lady tagging along. The royal executioner Ser Island Payne is the first person she encounters. She finds herself torn between who scares her more, him or the Hound. Prince Joffrey comes and casually takes her for a stroll by the river. They see 2 young people playing sword fight with sticks. However, one of them is Arya. Joffrey seizes the chance to show off to Sansa. He then challenges the butcher's boy to pick up his wooden stick while he uses his real sword. He uses his sword to make a small cut on his face. Arya had enough of the guy and smacked him with her stick. Joffrey now gets real pissed and is about to hurt her when Arya's own direwolf comes to her rescue. As Joffrey lies on the ground sobbing uncontrollably, Arya grabs his sword and tosses it into the river. When Sansa tries to console the weeping Joffrey, he angrily tells her to go. Arya then runs into the forest to let her direwolf escape for harming the prince. When Arya is eventually found, it is already dark, and she is brought right up to the queen. Joffrey presents his own version of the story in contrast to Arya's, and Sansa is introduced to break the tie. She won't confirm either story, so Arya yanks her hair and she screams at her. While King Robert is content to allow fathers to punish their own children, Cersei still craves blood and insists that Nymeria be put to death. Nymeria already escaped, but Lady is still with them. Sansa and Arya both tell them no, but Robert gives in to his wife's wishes. Ser Island Pain is sent by Cersei, but Ned dismisses him, saying he will do it himself. Lady is from the north, and he will not allow it to die in pain. A month later, the party of the king arrived at the capital, King's Landing. Before he can even dismount from his horse, Ned is called to a meeting of the Small Council, which is made up of the most trusted advisors to King Robert. Before making his way there, he meets Ser Jaime Lannister, who makes a sarcastic remark that the king sits while the hand wipes. Ned makes a comeback, saying that Jaime just stood at that very same place when his family died at the hands of the mad Targaryen king. Jaime Lannister, the King's Slayer, mentions that he did all of them a favor by killing the mad king. Ned scoffs at him, saying he only served the king when serving was safe, and did him dirty when it was time to run. He then proceeds to the room of the Small Council, which comprised of Master of Whispers Lord Varys, the eunuch, Renly Baratheon, Master of Laws, Grand Maester of the Citadel, Pycelle, and finally Peter Baelish, also called Littlefinger. The hypocrites, who only know how to scheme, slyly greet him and give him the token signaling his position as Hand of the King. He looks for Robert, to which Lord Varys replies that all meetings are entrusted to the Small Council. They finally start, and today's topic is the tournament to celebrate Ned's appointment as Hand of the King. By their estimate, it will take around 80,000 gold coins, which, as we know, is enough to buy around 200 houses in the US. Varys says they will just borrow it from the rich Lannisters. What is 80,000 gold coins compared to the whooping 6 million gold coins they owe the Lannisters? Ned could not believe his ears. Why would they let the kingdom go bankrupt? He tells everyone that the event is an extravagance that they cannot afford. In another part of the castle, Cersei tends to Joffrey's wounds. She sweet-talks the child and says he is a warrior who has just fought a direwolf. Although he clarifies that all he did was bawl his eyes while Arya beats him, Cersei says it does not matter, and the world will be what he wants it to be when he becomes king. They then talk about the North having too much power. Cersei advises him that a smart king knows when to strike. In the end, she says that anyone who isn't them is an enemy. The two sisters, Arya and Sansa, gets into a heated argument over Sansa lying that made Arya lose her friend. Arya stabs at the table and says she is practicing poking holes in Joffrey. She gets sent to her room over this, while Sansa gets a doll gift from Ned. But Sansa is not happy with it and goes to her own room. Ned visits Arya, who is practicing with her sword needle. If she is going to own a sword, she better know how to use it, he says before leaving her alone. Back in Winterfell, Bran already wakes up. However, he is unable to recall the events before his fall at the tower. He is now paralyzed from his waist down. The nanny amuses him with stories, but he dislikes it. Robb visits him, and the two have a time together. Ser Roderick and Catelyn have reached King's Landing through the back alley to avoid detection. To their surprise, two armed guards tell them to follow. They are brought into a brothel, and they are met with Littlefinger and Varys. "How did you find me?" she asked. It seems Catelyn Stark underestimates the Master of Whispers, who has a lot of little birds that give him information. They hand over the dagger that was used in the failed attempt at Bran's life. But even the Master of Whispers does not know to whom it belonged. Littlefinger smirks and says he recognizes it, as there is only one of its kind in all of the Seven Kingdoms. Because he owns it. At least he was, until he lost it to a bet against Tyrion Lannister. At the Castle Black, where the Knights watch live, the imp carefully observes Jon Snow spar 5 people at once. Ser Alliser Throne wanted to lecture him, but he defeats everyone. Ned receives a raven message, and Littlefinger, who passes by, asks if he wants to share it with his wife. Ned gets confused because he thinks his wife is still at Winterfell. Littlefinger then brings him over to the brothel. If not for Catelyn calling him out, Ned might have choked the man. Back at Castle Black, Jon gets ambushed by the men he beat up. They want to beat the snow out of him when Tyrion comes in for the quick save. It seems the messages the Stark family received are all regarding Bran finally waking up. Littlefinger offers the Starks help to get justice for the attempt at Bran's life. Even if they have the evidence, it is no easy task because Tyrion is the brother of the Queen. The party directly involved, Cersei and Jaime Lannister, gets into a heated argument about their carelessness. Jaime assures her that she's got nothing to worry about, even if it means going to war with the king, Ned, or anyone who opposes their love. Besides, Bran has amnesia. That morning, Ned and Catelyn parted ways. They cannot fight unless they have solid evidence. In the throne room, Robert talks with Ser Barristan the Bold their first times. To Ser Barristan, it was some unknown Tyroshi. To Robert, it was during the war to Atarli. Prime Robert back then was so strong he caved in the enemy armor using his warhammer. Turns out they were talking about their first kills. He calls in Jaime the Kingslayer and inquires about the Mad King's last words. Jaime replies that he had been saying one thing for many hours: burn them all. The Dothraki horde is now traversing the grassy Dothraki Sea, a vast area of greenery. With a single command, she orders the horde to stop so she can sightsee and rest for a while. She is learning to be a Khaleesi. Suddenly, Viserys came rushing in. He is fuming that he was ordered to stop too. He arrogantly proclaims that no one can command a dragon of the Seven Kingdoms. One of Drogo's men, Ricardo, comes to her rescue and whips Viserys to the ground. He asks if he can teach the guy some lesson. Daenerys swiftly steps in to protect her brother, ensuring he remains unharmed. While gasping for breath, Viserys orders Jorah to punish the Dothraki. However, Jorah snobs him and they return with the horde. In Castle Black, Jon takes a lift to get to the top of the wall to meet his uncle Benjen. Before he leaves for a mission as a first ranger, he wants to be with Jon when he looks over the wall for the first time. He wants to accompany his dear uncle, but Jon is no ranger. Meanwhile, Tyrion is having a good drink with Yoren, the recruiter of the Night's Watch. Benjen arrives and join their talks. He mocks the imp, insulted that Tyrion is taking the Night's Watch duty so lightly, without knowing of the dangers they face every day. It's because Tyrion believes that the wildlings are no different than anyone. But it's not the wildlings that scare Benjen. It's the undead Nightwalkers who was rumored to be seen once again after 1,000 years. That's why he is out there to patrol again. Yoren is also going away to recruit in King's Landing. Tyrion decides to travel with him. Daenerys learns that she is pregnant. One of her handmaiden instructs Ricardo to fetch for rabbit or any edible food. Jorah gets wind of this and thinks to himself, and then says he needs to go to someplace. Does anyone just leave a conversation in the middle of the night after learning crucial information? Jon is once more sparring with Grenn and Pip in the Castle Black yard. Instead of just beating them all up, he's teaching them this time and offers constructive criticism. Inside, Tyrion resumes his discussion with Lord Commander Mormont and the Maester of Castle Black, an elderly blind man by the name of Aemon. The days are growing shorter, according to Aemon, and wildlings are escaping south of the wall after claiming to have seen the White Walkers, according to Mormont. Both are worried about what lies ahead. The Night's Watch will require more than 1,000 members to oppose the White Walkers, and those members need to be more than just young criminals and elderly exiles. They implore Tyrion to relay a message in court that the Night's Watch needs help. That night, Jon bids goodbye to Tyrion and instructs him to tell Bran that he misses him when he passes by in Winterfell. On the other hand, Arya meets a strange man on top of one of the towers. His name is Syrio Forel, a dancing master from the free city of Braavos. He is the perfect teacher to be a mentor to Arya. In this episode, Bran is practicing archery and can somehow walk. He finds a three-eyed raven and suddenly jolts back awake. He is still paralyzed from the waist down. Theon Greyjoy comes in and tells Bran that his brother Robb wants to see him. Bran is unwilling to go, however. Theon reminds him that Robb is now the Lord of Winterfell, so he has no choice. They bring in a big man named Hodder, who can only utter his own name, to carry him. They have a visitor and discover it's Tyrion, who has a few things to say before he departs home. He hands over a blueprint for a saddle that will allow him to ride on a horse. Robb is skeptical about his reasons for going out of his way to help Bran. He inquires on why he's willing to go so far to help. "I have a soft spot for cripples, bastards, and broken things such as him," says Tyrion. Robb thanks him and Tyrion shakes his head to spare him the false courtesy. Before leaving, Theon advises him to seek out Roose if he wants good redheads. Tyrion also gets displeased at Theon saying Robb is not his master and mocks him on his loyalty to his captors. It seems that his father Balon Greyjoy once led a revolt and lost terribly. That's why he's now stuck in Winterfell. Back at Castle Black, The men go on with their lives practicing sword fights and doing their duties when Ser Alliser brings in a new recruit. He is a fat man who looks very clumsy and someone who gets bullied in school. His name is Samwell Tarly of Hornhill. Alliser instructs him to spar with one of the men and gets mauled in seconds. Alliser instructs the man to beat him up until he gets to his feet. Luckily, Jon steps in and defends him, saying that he had already yielded. Alliser then orders Pip, Gren, and Rast to defeat Snow before they can have Samwell. Jon warns if they truly want to go against him before making them all yield. Sam tries to thank him, but Jon scolds that the wall is no place for cowards. He must defend himself when the time comes. Khal Drogo's horde has just arrived in Viz Dothrak, the city of horse lords. Viserys complains that it is nothing but a pile of dirt and mud. Daenerys snaps at him, saying that the ones he's talking about are now her people. Viserys is still adamant that it's not hers, it's his army. Daenerys inquires Jorah Mormont if they can truly conquer the 7 kingdoms with the Dothrakis. Jorah replies that the horde has never crossed the sea and never will. But, theoretically, no army could take on the Dothrakis in an open battle, he says. In King's Landing, Ned is getting his hands full from his duty as the Hand of the King. He was unsuccessful at convincing Robert to stop the lavish event. Besides, a massive amount of people are flooding the city for the anticipated event. There are many reports regarding tavern riots and increased crimes. The command of the City Watch says he needs more men. The meeting concludes, but before leaving, he stops Pycelle on his way out. He wanted to ask about the previous hand, Jon Arryn, before he passed. Pycelle mentions he personally tended to him and that his death was of natural cause. The night before, he was reading a book about the lineage of kings and nobles of the kingdom. It doesn't take him anywhere, though, as it only gives him info on the complexion of the royals. Pycelle further adds that his final words were, "The seed is strong," which made no sense to him. Ned suspects that he might have been poisoned. He leaves the room and takes the book with him. On his way, he finds Arya standing on her foot to become a sword master. She gets saddened by Bran's disability, which makes him lose his dream of becoming a knight. But Arya still has her own destiny and is set on to mold with her own strength. The following morning, Ned and Littlefinger have a little talk in the garden. As he promised to Catelyn, Littlefinger will assist Ned in any way he can. He found Ned was interested in Arryn's case, so he reveals that Ser Hugh in Vale, the squire of Jon Arryn, was knighted after Arryn's demise. He also warns of the spies all over the city and to be careful and not trust anyone, even Littlefinger. He finally drops intel to visit a certain armorer in the city. There he might find what he is looking for. He takes his most trusted aide to visit the armory. The owner confirms that the Hand did visit him, and several times even. His objective? A blacksmith by the name of Gendry. Apart from his skill with steel, nothing is really noteworthy of him. Ned inquires about what he and Arryn talked about when he visited. Arryn only asked things about his parents' whereabouts and what she looked like. Upon looking at his eyes, Ned realizes the truth. Gendry is Ned's illegitimate son. What does this have to do with Bran's assassin? We will soon know. At Castle Black, Jon gets paired with Sam. At the diner, he tells all of the men that they should not touch Sam no matter what Alliser says. They are all brothers of the Night's Watch, and they should help each other instead of hurting one another. Rast has something to say about this, though, and mocks Jon, saying that he is indeed in love with the Lady Piggy. That night, they use force, gag Rast, and order him to never touch Sam. When training day arrives, Sam and Rast have another round of spar. He gets hesitant and makes a very weak jab at Sam. Alliser gets angry and makes Gren the next challenger. He tells Sam to hit him, and he pretends to be hurt badly enough for him to yield. Ser Alliser knows that it was Jon's doing, so he gives a stern warning to everyone. When they are deployed outside the wall, they need to have a reliable companion to watch each other's back, or else they will not last. Back at Viz Dothrak, Viserys is fuming and drags a woman whom he says is sent by Daenerys to spy on him. But Daenerys argues that he only wanted to invite him to dinner. He is so mad that he throws gifts at Daenerys' face and slaps her for talking back to the future king of the 7 kingdoms. For the first time, Daenerys lashes back and cuts a wound on his face. She asserts that she is Daenerys, the Khaleesi, and wife of Khal Drogo. She sternly warns his brother that this will be the last time he lay a hand on her, or else he will live without his limbs forever. That night, he consults Jorah because she feels guilty for hurting the self-proclaimed last dragon. He assures her and eases her worries. She speaks out the truth for the first time, that Viserys' incompetency will never allow him to take back the 7 kingdoms. Even if he is given an army, he won't be able to bring them home. The day of the Hands tourney is about to start. Peter sits beside the Stark kids who are watching from the stands. He addresses Arya's inquiries on why he's called Littlefinger. Apparently, he comes from a land called the Fingers. That's where he gets it from. The jousting is about to start. The first two competitors are Ser Hugh of the Vale and Gregor Clegane, the older brother of the Hound. Moments later, Gregor sends Ser Hugh flying away with splinters stuck in his neck. Peter whispers a story about the Clegane brothers. While young, the elder brother went berserk and forced the face of his younger brother across the flames, which left a permanent scar on him. Somewhere far away at an inn between King's Landing and Winterfell, Catelyn is having lunch when the imp barges in. Catelyn Stark, former Catelyn Tully, asks each person one by one where their royalty is. Upon knowing that most of these men have pledged loyalty to her father, she accuses Tyrion of the attempted murder of her son, and they immediately capture the imp. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoy Game of Thrones. See you in our next video.